The massive ship appeared in Earth's orbit like a silver tear in the fabric of space. Its smooth surface caught the sunlight, creating patterns that dazzled the countless observers watching from below. This was humanity's first glimpse of the Galactic Federation's flagship, and even the most hardened critics had to admit it was impressive. Ambassador James Thomas stood at the window of the Global Unity Center, his hands clasped behind his back. At 60 years old, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had spent decades in diplomatic service. Today would test every skill he had learned. The ship's arrival marked the end of a 5-year waiting period. Earth had petitioned to join the Galactic Federation, and now High Consul Reed had come to make his final assessment. The rumors about Reed weren't encouraging. He was known for his harsh judgments of younger civilizations. "They're beginning their descent, sir," said Robert, Thomas's assistant. "The landing pad is ready." Thomas nodded, watching as a smaller vessel separated from the main ship. It looked like a drop of mercury, flowing smoothly through the atmosphere. The landing pad, specially constructed for this moment, sat empty and waiting in the sprawling grounds of the Global Unity Center. The ship landed without a sound. No jets, no engines, just silent technology that made Earth's best efforts look like children's toys. A crowd of Earth's highest-ranking officials gathered at a respectful distance, all of them knowing that humanity's future might depend on what happened next. The ship's surface rippled, and a door simply appeared. High Consul Reed emerged first, and Thomas had to hide his surprise. Reed looked almost human, except for the slight silver sheen to his skin and the unusual grace of his movements. He wore robes that seemed to shift color with each step, technology and fashion combined in ways Earth couldn't match. "Welcome to Earth, High Consul," Thomas said, stepping forward with a practiced smile. "We are honored by your presence." Reed's eyes, a startling shade of violet, fixed on Thomas. "The honor is noted," he said, his voice carrying a musical quality that the translation devices couldn't quite hide. "Though I must admit, I expected more. Advancement since our last survey." Thomas kept his smile in place, even as he felt the sting of the insult. "We believe in steady progress, High Consul. Sometimes the quietest changes are the most significant." Behind Reed, a younger-looking aide emerged from the ship. He introduced himself as Marcus, and unlike his superior, his eyes showed genuine interest as he looked around. He carried a device that looked like a transparent tablet, making notes with quick gestures in the air. The formal greetings continued, each word heavy with protocol and hidden meanings. Through it all, Thomas noticed how Reed barely contained his disdain. The consul's eyes lingered on the visible seams in Earth's architecture, the fossil fuel vehicles still used by some officials, the primitive personal devices humans carried. "We have prepared a comprehensive tour," Thomas said, gesturing toward the center. "Our scientists and leaders are eager to share our achievements." "Yes," Reed said, his tone making the words sound like "unfortunately." "I'm sure they are. Let us proceed with the evaluation, though I must remind you that Federation membership requires meeting certain standards." As they walked, Marcus fell into step beside Thomas. "Your architecture," he said quietly. "It's fascinating how you've integrated old and new materials. Most civilizations simply destroy and rebuild." Before Thomas could respond, Reed called Marcus forward, leaving the ambassador to wonder about the young aide's unusual interest. The group entered the Global Unity Center, Earth's newest and most advanced building. Even here, Reed found fault, commenting on the visible use of concrete and steel. "Primitive materials," he murmured, loud enough for all to hear. "Though I suppose you work with what you have." Thomas watched as his fellow humans absorbed these small insults with dignity. They had prepared for this, knowing that the Federation considered Earth barely civilized. But Thomas had seen the classified reports, the breakthrough technologies being developed in secret labs around the world. He knew something Reed didn't. Humanity had learned to do things differently, not because they were primitive, but because they had found better ways. As they reached the first demonstration area, Thomas caught Marcus studying the simple wooden chair with intense interest. The aide's expression showed none of his superior's contempt, only curiosity. For a moment, Thomas wondered if perhaps not everyone in the Federation shared Reed's prejudices. The day had only begun, and already Thomas could feel the weight of Reed's judgment. But he had faith in humanity's achievements, even if they didn't match the Federation's expectations. Sometimes being different wasn't the same as being inferior, a lesson the High Consul would soon learn. The first stop on the tour was Earth's newest quantum research facility. High Consul Reed walked through the clean white halls, his silver-tinted face reflecting the bright lights above. His aide Marcus followed close behind, still making notes on his transparent device. "Your power systems are quite basic," Reed said, pointing at the visible power lines running along the ceiling. "Most civilizations master wireless energy transmission before they even achieve spaceflight." Thomas smiled politely. "We find physical connections more reliable in certain situations," he replied, "especially when dealing with sensitive quantum equipment." The lead scientist, Dr. Adams, waited for them in the main laboratory. She was a short woman with gray hair and steady hands that had worked on some of Earth's most important discoveries. The room behind her hummed with energy, and strange patterns of light danced across specialized containers. "Welcome, High Consul," she said. "We're currently working on quantum entanglement enhancement. Would you like to see our latest results?" Reed's expression showed mild amusement. "Entanglement enhancement. We mastered that technology centuries ago, but please proceed with your demonstration." Dr. Adams pressed a few buttons on a simple control panel. 2 containers lit up, and between them, a stream of data appeared in the air. "We've managed to achieve stable entanglement across unlimited distances with 0 degradation," she explained. For the first time, Reed's confident smile wavered. He stepped closer to the display, his violet eyes narrowing. "This is impossible," he said. "Even our best systems show minimal degradation at extreme distances." "We took a different approach," Dr. Adams explained. "Instead of fighting against quantum degradation, we work with it. The system adapts to changes in the quantum field rather than trying to overcome them." Marcus moved forward, his eyes bright with interest. "Fascinating," he whispered. "You're treating quantum space as a living system rather than a tool." Reed shot him a sharp look, and the aide quickly stepped back. The tour continued through other sections of the facility. Earth scientists showed their achievements in artificial intelligence, clean energy, and medical technology. Each time, Reed found something to criticize, but Thomas noticed the consul's comments becoming less certain. They'd reached the Neural Interface Lab, where researchers were developing ways to connect human minds to computers. Reed's dismissive attitude returned in full force. "Still using physical implants," he scoffed. "We abandoned those ages ago. Our systems work through pure thought." The lead researcher, Dr. Miller, picked up a small device that looked like a simple headband. "Would you like to try our latest prototype?" he asked. Reed looked at the device as if it might bite him. "I suppose a brief demonstration won't hurt," he said. He placed the headband on his forehead, its surface adjusting to fit him perfectly. "Now just think about lifting that cup," Dr. Miller said, pointing to a ceramic cup on a nearby table. Reed concentrated, and the cup slowly rose into the air. Yes, he said. "Basic telekinetic interface. We've had this technology for." His voice trailed off as he noticed something strange. The cup wasn't just floating. It was changing shape, molding itself like clay according to his thoughts. "Our system doesn't just read thoughts," Dr. Miller explained. "It creates a direct connection with the quantum structure of matter itself. You're not controlling the cup, you're communicating with it." The cup crashed to the floor as Reed quickly removed the headband. For a moment, he looked shaken. Marcus stepped forward to steady him, but Reed waved him away. "Interesting tricks," Reed said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence, though hardly practical for advanced civilization. Thomas watched as Marcus picked up the broken pieces of the cup, studying them with intense fascination. The aide's behavior was becoming more intriguing by the hour. As they left the facility, Thomas overheard Reed speaking quietly to Marcus. "Make sure all of this is documented," he said, "especially their quantum manipulation techniques. The Council will want to know about this unexpected development." The sun was setting as they headed to their next destination, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Thomas felt a small sense of satisfaction. The High Consul might not admit it, but Earth's achievements had definitely caught his attention. And tomorrow would bring even more surprises. Morning came with an unexpected announcement. Ambassador Thomas stood before the assembled Federation delegation, his voice steady and clear in the morning air. "High Consul Reed, we propose a challenge. Allow us to demonstrate our technology in direct comparison with Federation standards." The gathered humans held their breath. This wasn't part of the normal evaluation process, and everyone knew it. Reed's violet eyes narrowed slightly, but a small smile played at the corners of his mouth. "A challenge?" Reed said, his voice carrying that musical quality that made even his contempt sound beautiful. "Very well. It might be educational for your people to see the true gap between us. What tasks do you propose?" Thomas unfolded a paper list, an intentionally old-fashioned touch that made Reed's smile widen. 3 demonstrations: space travel efficiency, energy generation, and medical technology. Your choice of Federation examples to compare against. Marcus, standing behind Reed, looked up from his transparent tablet with obvious interest. His eyes met Thomas for a moment, and the ambassador caught a glimpse of something like excitement in them. "Agreed," Reed said, "though I warn you, such direct comparison might be disheartening for your people." He turned to Marcus. "Prepare the demonstration units from the ship. Let's show them real technology." As the Federation group left to make preparations, Thomas's assistant Robert rushed up to him, face pale with worry. "Sir, we just received a message from Defense Station Alpha. Our deep space monitors picked up something strange. Multiple objects moving toward both Earth and Federation space." Thomas frowned. "Hostile?" "Unknown, sir, but they're using some kind of technology we've never seen before. And," Robert lowered his voice, "they're moving faster than anything in our records, including Federation ships." Before Thomas could respond, he noticed Marcus standing nearby, his tablet forgotten in his hands. The aide's face showed an emotion Thomas couldn't quite read. Was it fear? Concern? But when Marcus saw Thomas looking at him, his expression quickly returned to its usual polite interest. The challenges were set to begin in the massive demonstration arena built specially for the Federation visit. The first test would be space travel efficiency. A Federation shuttle sat gleaming on one end of the field, its surface rippling like liquid metal. Next to it stood Earth's contribution, a craft that looked almost primitive in comparison, its surface marked with visible panels and joints. Reed walked around Earth's shuttle, making no attempt to hide his amusement. "This is your best. I see no advancement from the designs we observed years ago." Dr. Adams stepped forward. "The outside might look familiar, High Consul. It's the inside that matters." She pressed a button, and the craft's side panel opened to reveal an engine unlike anything the Federation had seen before. Instead of the expected propulsion system, the engine chamber contained what looked like a garden. Plants of various sizes grew in a spiral pattern around a central crystal column. Strange lights pulsed through the vegetation, creating patterns that seemed to bend space itself. Reed's confidence faltered for just a moment. "What is this?" "We call it the living drive," Dr. Adams explained. "Instead of forcing our way through space, we work with it. The plants act as organic quantum processors, finding and creating natural shortcuts through space-time." Marcus pushed forward, his eyes wide with wonder. "You've created a biological quantum computer, one that can actually manipulate space-time." His voice carried none of the Federation's usual condescension, only genuine amazement. Reed shot his aide a warning look, but Marcus seemed too fascinated to notice. He reached toward the engine, then pulled his hand back quickly as if afraid of breaking something. The demonstration was about to begin when Robert appeared again at Thomas's side. "Sir," he whispered urgently, "the objects we detected, they've changed course. They're accelerating. And now we're picking up energy signatures unlike anything we've ever seen." Thomas looked across the field and saw Marcus staring at him. The aide's hand was pressed against his tablet, and his expression had changed completely. Gone was the fascinated young official. In his place stood someone who looked deeply troubled, perhaps even afraid. The morning sun shone down on the demonstration field, glinting off both shuttles. But Thomas barely noticed. Something bigger was happening, something that might make this whole competition meaningless. He just wished he knew what Marcus knew, because it was becoming very clear that the aide knew something very important indeed. The demonstration never began. As the crews prepared their ships, Marcus suddenly stepped away from the Federation group. His movements were different now, smoother, more confident. He walked straight to the center of the field, between the two ships. "We need to stop," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the arena. "There's something more important you all need to know." Reed's face darkened with anger. "Marcus, return to your position immediately. This is not proper protocol." But Marcus didn't move. Instead, he held up his tablet, and it transformed in his hands. The transparent surface flowed like water, reshaping itself into a sphere that floated above his palm. Inside it, a three-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared. "I'm not actually a Federation aide," Marcus said. Several red dots pulsed on the map, moving quickly through space. "I'm from what you might call an observer civilization. We've been watching both Earth and the Federation for a very long time." Thomas stepped forward. "The objects our sensors detected, they're connected to you." Marcus shook his head. "No, they're the reason I'm here. Those ships belong to the harvesters. They consume civilizations, taking their technology and knowledge before destroying them completely." Reed laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Impossible. The Federation's defense systems would have detected any such threat." "Your defense systems are part of the problem, High Consul," Marcus said. "The Federation has become too set in its ways. You've stopped innovating. You use the same technologies, the same approaches, century after century. The harvesters know all your weaknesses." The map zoomed in, showing the red dots moving ever closer to both Earth and Federation space. Thomas noticed they moved in patterns that seemed familiar somehow, like the quantum field fluctuations they'd been studying. "But Earth," Marcus continued, "Earth is different. You've developed technologies in ways we've never seen before. Your living drive, your quantum interfaces, your organic computing. They're not primitive at all. They're revolutionary." Reed's anger had turned to confusion. "If what you say is true, why reveal yourself now?" "Because the harvesters are coming sooner than we expected. They detected Earth's quantum experiments. They know humanity has discovered something new, something they don't understand. And that makes Earth their primary target." The sphere in Marcus's hand expanded, filling the air with detailed images of massive ships, their surfaces covered in technology that looked both organic and mechanical. They moved through space like living things, adapting and changing as they traveled. "How long do we have?" Thomas asked. "Days, maybe less," Marcus replied. "They'll hit Earth first, then the Federation. Unless." "Unless what?" Reed demanded. "Unless we work together. Earth's organic approach to technology combined with the Federation's advanced engineering. It might be enough to stop them, but it would mean sharing everything. Trusting each other completely." Reed looked at the human ships, then at his own, his expression troubled. "Our scientists have always said that organic technology was primitive, unreliable. Your scientists were wrong," Marcus said simply. "They were so focused on perfecting old methods that they missed entire branches of possible development. Earth took a different path, not because they had to, but because they saw possibilities you never considered. Thomas watched as understanding finally dawned on Reed's face. All the things he dismissed as primitive, Earth's physical power lines, their organic computers, their seemingly simple neural interfaces, they weren't signs of technological backwardness. They were evidence of a completely different way of thinking about technology itself. The map above them showed the harvester ships moving ever closer. Their paths created patterns in space that looked like cracks spreading through glass. "We have to decide now," Marcus said. "Earth's organic technology and the Federation's advanced engineering might be the only combination that can stop them. Will you work together?" Thomas looked at Reed, waiting. The High Consul stood very still, his violet eyes fixed on the approaching ships. In those few seconds, Thomas could almost see him struggling with centuries of Federation prejudice against primitive approaches. Finally, Reed turned to Thomas. The contempt was gone from his face, replaced by something that looked almost like hope. "Ambassador," he said, "I believe we have much to learn from each other." Within hours, the demonstration arena had transformed into a command center. Humans and Federation members worked side by side, their earlier prejudices forgotten in the face of the coming threat. Marcus stood at the center, his floating sphere now projecting detailed information about the harvesters. "They've destroyed 12 civilizations in the last 1,000 years, Marcus explained, showing images of dead worlds. "Each time, they adapt and grow stronger. They take the best technologies from each civilization they consume." Dr. Adams studied the images carefully. "They're ships. They're partially organic, aren't they? Like our living drive." Marcus nodded. "Yes, but they use it differently. They force the organic components to obey, breaking them down and rebuilding them. It's efficient but limited. They can't achieve the harmony your systems have." Reed watched a simulation of a harvester attack, his silver skin reflecting the red glow of the destruction. "Why didn't your people stop them?" he asked Marcus. "If you're advanced enough to watch us undetected, surely you could fight them." "We tried, long ago," Marcus said quietly. "We fought them with pure technology, like the Federation would. We lost badly. That's when we realized we needed to find a different way. We began watching younger civilizations, hoping to find new approaches." He turned to Thomas. "Earth's work with organic technology is the first real hope we've had." Thomas looked at the human and Federation scientists working together. Dr. Adams was showing Reed's chief engineer how their living drive communicated with space itself. Meanwhile, Federation technicians were helping upgrade Earth's defensive systems with their advanced materials. "But will it be enough?" Thomas asked. "They'll be here soon." Marcus's sphere flickered, showing new data. "They've changed course slightly. They're being cautious. They've noticed the Federation ships in orbit. It gives us maybe 2 more days." Reed stepped forward, his usual aristocratic manner replaced by genuine concern. "What exactly makes Earth's technology so special?" "We have organic components in some of our systems." "Show him," Marcus said to Dr. Adams. She led them to a small device sitting on a nearby table. It looked simple, just a clear cube with what appeared to be a small garden inside. "This is a miniature version of our living drive system," she explained. "Watch." She placed her hand on the cube. The plants inside began to move, not like normal plants swaying in the wind, but like they were dancing to some unheard music. The air around the cube shimmered. "The plants aren't just processing data," she explained. "They're living beings, making choices, adapting to changes. We don't control them. We work with them. The Federation tries to master nature. We try to partner with it." Reed touched the cube carefully. The plants responded differently to him, creating new patterns. His eyes widened. "It's talking to me." "Now you understand," Marcus said. "The Harvesters and the Federation both try to impose their will on the universe. Earth has learned to listen to it instead. That's what makes their technology special. And that's what might save us all." A loud alarm suddenly cut through the air. Robert rushed in, his face pale. "The Harvesters, they've changed course again. They're accelerating. Marcus's sphere showed the enemy ships moving faster, their patterns becoming more aggressive. They must have detected our combined energy signatures. They know we're working together. How long now? Thomas asked. 24 hours, maybe less. Reed straightened up, looking more like a warrior than a diplomat. Then we have no choice. We must combine our technologies immediately. He turned to Thomas. Ambassador, I formally request Earth's help in defending both our civilizations, and I apologize for my earlier judgment of your people. Thomas nodded. Apology accepted. Now, let's show these harvesters what happens when the Federation's power works together with Earth's understanding. Above them, through the clear ceiling of the command center, they could see Federation ships moving into defensive positions around Earth. Their silver hulls gleamed in the sunlight, but now they were being modified, integrated with Earth's organic technology. The greatest test was coming, and the outcome would depend not on who had the most advanced technology, but on who could best learn to see things in a new way. The next 20 hours passed in a blur of activity. Earth's organic technology spread through the Federation ships like a living thing, while Federation engineering strengthened Earth's defenses. Dr. Adams worked without rest, teaching Federation engineers how to communicate with the living systems instead of trying to control them. The first harvester ship appeared just as the sun was setting. It broke through space like a knife tearing through fabric, its surface a twisted maze of stolen technologies. It was bigger than anything Earth or the Federation had ever built, stretching nearly 10 miles from end to end. They're scanning us, Marcus announced, his sphere showing waves of energy washing over Earth and the Federation fleet. They're trying to understand our combined defenses. In orbit, 50 Federation ships had formed a protective ring around Earth. Each one now carried a version of the living drive, their silver hulls wrapped in patterns of growing organic technology. They looked like gardens in space, beautiful and strange. Reed stood in the command center, watching the tactical displays. Their ship design, it's changing as we watch. They're adapting already. He was right. The harvester ship's surface rippled and flowed, trying to copy what it saw. But something was wrong. Where Earth's organic systems flowed naturally, the harvester's attempts looked forced and broken. They don't understand, Dr. Adams said, smiling slightly. They can copy the form, but not the relationship. You can't force life to work with you. It has to choose to help. 3 more harvester ships appeared, their surfaces already shifting to attack formation. Energy began building along their hulls, preparing weapons that had destroyed civilizations before. Thomas watched as Federation Captain Lisa Brown, now in command of the combined fleet, gave the order to begin their defense. The 50 ships didn't charge forward as expected. Instead, they stayed in their circle around Earth, and the organic systems on their hulls began to pulse with light. What are they doing? Reed asked, confused by this passive stance. Marcus's sphere zoomed in on the Federation ships. Watch, he said softly. The living systems on each ship reached out, not with weapons or shields, but with patterns of light and energy that mimicked the quantum field itself. The ships weren't fighting. They were talking to space. The harvester ships fired their weapons. Beams of destructive energy shot toward Earth and the defensive ring. But as they traveled, something incredible happened. Space itself seemed to bend around the attacks, redirecting them harmlessly into empty areas. Impossible, Reed whispered. They're manipulating the quantum field on a massive scale. Dr. Adams nodded. The living systems aren't forcing anything. They're asking space to help us, working with the natural patterns of the universe instead of against them. The harvesters fired again and again, each attack bent away by the cooperative dance between the Federation ships and space itself. Their weapons, stolen from 1,000 dead worlds, couldn't break through a defense that worked with nature instead of trying to control it. Marcus's sphere showed the harvester ships' power levels rising dangerously. They're getting desperate. They're going to try a full power assault. The 4 massive ships began to glow with gathered energy. Their surfaces writhed as they poured everything they had into one final attack. The light built until it was almost too bright to look at. Captain Brown's voice came through the command center speakers, calm and determined. All ships, initiate living field resonance, just like we practiced. Don't force it, invite it. The Federation ship's organic systems pulsed in perfect harmony. The quantum field around Earth began to shimmer with patterns of light that looked almost alive. As the harvesters released their massive energy attack, space itself seemed to take a deep breath. The harvester's weapon fired, a beam of pure destruction that could have cracked a planet. But when it hit the living quantum field around Earth, something beautiful happened. The energy didn't just bend away, it transformed. The attack twisted and changed, becoming part of the natural flow of space itself. The harvester ships tried to pull back, but it was too late. Their own energy, transformed by the living field, began to flow back toward them. Not as a weapon, but as an invitation to change. Thomas looked at Reed and saw the same wonder on the consul's face that he felt himself. They weren't just defending Earth. They were showing the harvesters a completely new way of existing in the universe. The transformed energy flowed around the harvester ships like a gentle tide. Where their surfaces had been sharp and aggressive, they began to soften. The stolen technologies that covered their hulls started to shift and change, responding to the living quantum field's invitation. "They're not fighting anymore," Marcus said, his sphere showing detailed readings of the harvester ships. "Their systems are adapting, but not like before. They're learning to work with space instead of trying to control it." Through the command center's windows, they could see the beautiful dance of lights in orbit. The Federation ships maintained their circle, their organic systems pulsing in harmony with the universe itself. The harvester ships hung in space, their surfaces flowing like water as decades of forced control gave way to natural cooperation. Reed stepped closer to the window, his violet eyes reflecting the light show above. "All this time," he said softly, "we thought advancing meant having more control. But Earth understood something we have forgotten. The universe isn't something to be mastered. It's a partner in creation." One of the harvester ships suddenly began to change more dramatically. Its surface rippled and flowed until it looked almost like a living garden in space, similar to the Federation ships, but with its own unique pattern. Then, slowly, it moved forward, not to attack, but to communicate. "They're sending a signal," Robert announced from his communication station. "It's different from anything we've seen before. Not aggressive, almost like music." Dr. Adams moved to her instruments, studying the signal pattern. "It's similar to how our living systems communicate," she said with growing excitement. "They're not just copying the technology anymore. They're understanding the philosophy behind it." The other harvester ships began to change too, each finding its own way to work with the living quantum field. Their weapons dissolved, reformed into systems that enhanced rather than destroyed. The sight was beautiful and strange. Ancient enemies learning a new way to exist. Marcus's sphere displayed a wider view of space, showing energy patterns spreading out from Earth in all directions. "The quantum field changes are rippling through the galaxy," he said. "Other civilizations will see this. They'll learn there's another way." Thomas watched as Captain Brown ordered the Federation ships to adjust their formation, creating space for the transformed harvester ships to join them. There was no more need for a defensive circle. Now it was a dance of cooperation, each ship adding its own voice to the universal harmony. "High Consul," Thomas said, turning to Reed, "I believe this changes things for the Federation as well." Reed nodded, a smile spreading across his silver face. "Indeed it does, Ambassador. Earth has not only proven itself worthy of Federation membership, you have shown us a better path forward." He paused, looking somewhat embarrassed. "Though perhaps the Federation itself needs to change. We've been stuck in our ways for too long." "Change isn't always easy," Marcus said, his sphere dissolving back into a simple tablet. "But my people will help. We've watched long enough. It's time for us to join this dance as well." Above them, The ships continued their orbital ballet. Federation technology merged with Earth's organic systems, and the transformed harvester ships added their own unique contributions. It was no longer about whose technology was more advanced. It was about how they could all work together, with each other and with the universe itself. Dr. Adams touched the small cube containing the miniature living drive, watching as its plants moved in harmony with the massive systems above. "Every ending is just a new beginning," she said. "The harvesters came to consume our technology, but instead they learned to grow." Reed turned to Thomas, his former arrogance replaced by genuine respect. "Ambassador, I came to Earth expecting to find a primitive civilization. Instead, I found teachers. Will you help the Federation learn this new way?" Thomas smiled, extending his hand to the High Consul. "Of course. After all, that's what partners do." As they shook hands, the light from the transformed ships above bathed the room in a soft, living glow. The universe, it seemed, approved of this new partnership. In seeking to destroy Earth, the harvesters had instead helped create something beautiful, a future where technology and nature, strength and cooperation, humanity, and the stars all danced together in harmony.